Oh, crown them Lord of Lords. What was that song?
Crown him with many crowns.
That's
Dun,
right.
dun, 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 dun.
How many crowns can he hold on his head?
I guess it depends on how big his head is.
Well, it would not be nice to say that the Lord has a big head. That would be like,
Wouldn't be very proper.
it wouldn't be proper at all.
It would not be proper.
All right. We're going to go live. Camera's not on camera. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Bible experience. You are experiencing the experience with us.
As we experience the experience.
So we have been having a lot of fun this season with the Aleph Tav. And just as a brief recap for those of you who may be here for the first time, in the New Testament, Jesus says, I am the Alpha and the Omega. In Hebrew, that would be the Aleph and the Tav. Mm-hmm. And fascinating enough, in the Old Testament, there's these speckled mystery Aleph Tavs that appear everywhere. They can't be translated, so they're not in any Bibles other than the Hebrew. So what we do is we go through the Old Testament in Hebrew and insert where the Aleph Tav belongs in the English version so that you can kind of see the mystery of Jesus in the Old Testament. I think the past few weeks we've spent a lot of time on Joseph.
Yes, because he is what people call a type and shadow of the Messiah to come, which was Jesus.
Exactly. What we also do usually is when we start out in the evening, Kara actually usually reads a little history about Litchfield.
I found this little fact so interesting. And it's just this tiny little image that's an excerpt from the Litchfield Book of Days. And it says the December 7th entry in the Litchfield Book of Days. Sometime in December of 1753, liberty was voted to Isaac Hosford and others to erect a Sabbath day house.
Ooh.
And I was super curious about that. But then, fortunately, the wonderful person who posts these things said a little bit more about what a Sabbath day house was, because I was very curious.
All right.
And so in their post, they say, Sabbath day houses. During the colonial period, Connecticut residents were required by law to attend all-day church services on Sundays. By law. Meeting houses were unheated, and a midday break allowed people to eat and warm up before the afternoon services. For those who lived too far away to return home during this break time, towns sometimes built small Sabbath day houses where they could take shelter. That's kind of what I was thinking.
Why do you just keep reading?
Well, it just finished.
Oh, that's it?
That's what it's called. The Sabbath day houses. And so now I'm very curious, and I actually was trying to look up a little bit more about these Sabbath day houses.
What were these people, Jewish or something? What did they do there? What did they do in the Sabbath house?
In the Sabbath day house, that was the place where they would rest, warm up, and eat lunch.
That's it?
Yeah.
Did they get to drink anything?
No.
Well, they're
Or maybe. I don't know. It depends on which side of the what was it called? I can't believe the word has gone from my mind. Abolition or what was it? The movement against alcohol.
Well, they definitely weren't Jewish then.
Right.
Because if you go, folks, look, I have to say this. I don't know, where's my button? Folks, I have to say this. I'm thinking about the 1700s. Being forced to go to the Sabbath house. If it's a Jewish Sabbath house, you'll have many shevitz and a variety of other things, libations to have, which makes the Sabbath a lot easier when you're forced to go to Sabbath house, Sabbath thing.
I just thought that was so interesting. I did not know that it was required by law anywhere that you had to attend church. And so just to know that back in the day, in the colonial era, sometime, it was law that you had to go to church all day long.
All day long. I think maybe we should consider going back to the old.
But you might hate that.
Well, actually, the interesting thing is that going to the actual instruction in the Torah about Shabbat, actually, if there's any instructions that you're not supposed to go anywhere other than just enjoy your own house.
Right.
And stop working and just enjoy your family and have a libation or two or three.
And the women aren't supposed to be slaving in the kitchen. None of that.
No.
Just barefoot and sitting and enjoying.
With her husband rubbing her feet.
See, now that sounds good. I like that. You must now stay at home and relax for this day. This is your Sabbath. I don't know. I found that so fascinating that was a law. And now I want to know more about Sabbath houses and how long that lasted in the United States.
I feel a little confined just with the thought.
Well, I mean, you have something wrapped around your neck right now.
So we have been speaking about the shadows, the type of, the
Type and shadow, the foreshadowing of, any one of those fancy words you want to use.
Yes, because it's really fascinating that a lot of people think that, I don't know, like in the Old Testament, God like had anger management issues.
I guess.
Yes, and then somehow in the New Testament, he must have gotten some counseling. Chilled right out.
He softened up.
Softened right up. But actually, in reality, we know that's not true. We're just play because the scripture says that God is the same today, yesterday, and forever. He never changes. And so it's fascinating that whereas we think that there's a difference between the old and the new, it's actually fascinating to understand that the old was necessary to establish the foundation for the new. So you can't separate a house from its foundation. There's this lacing. And in this lacing, even though the old covenant was promised that it would change, there'd be a new covenant, because a new covenant had to be all connected to God doing things through us, no longer humans trying to do things for themselves. Right. And so even though that promise was there, we go into the Old Testament and we find all these like wink winks, like the Father's winking at us saying, hey, there's a time in the season that you'll understand this in a whole different light. And so there's where you have the stories of Joseph, which is a foreshadow of Messiah, rejected by his brothers, received by the Gentiles, his name is changed, that whole thing, it's fascinating. And so we've been having a lot of fun just with the Aleph Tavs, and today we're not only going to be speaking about Aleph Tavs, but we're going to speak in another unique story, which is the story of Jonah. Because Jonah, ironically, you wouldn't think it, is another shadow and type of the Messiah. That's
really interesting to think about, because we don't think about Jonah and think about Jesus. We don't usually you talk about Jonah and you're thinking, oh, that stubborn prophet that was all bitter and just wanted everyone to get punished.
Right.
And didn't get his way.
Right. And that doesn't sound like a Jesus figure.
Not at all.
Right. Well, I am going to actually have you look something up so that we can understand why is Jonah a foreshadow or a type of Jesus. In the Gospel of Mark, chapter 8. And you're going to read verse 11, 12, and 13. And as you look that up, just as a little prelude to this, is Jesus had been He had gone to a place and he was speaking in a crowd, and it was about 4,000 or 5,000 people there. And usually in Scripture, when it says there were 4,000 or 5,000, it's actually families. It's not like peoples. It's families. It's usually like someone with their family. So there is women and children, and so there's a lot more than the number that is given.
That's so interesting.
These are families. God never sees people as a person by themselves. He always sees you as a family. So there's a lot more than 4,000 or 5,000, or I think in this particular scripture, let's see. In Mark, it's referred to as 4,000. Jesus feeds the 4,000. And as you can understand, everybody's just blown away and amazed, and they're eating. You give people a meal, and everybody wants to come back. What's for dinner? I actually know someone who said, I thank God for pizza. And I said, why do you thank God for pizza? And he said, because when I was a teenager, there was this church, and it was giving out free pizza if you came to listen to a story.
A lot of churches do stuff like that for their youth.
So what happened was this. He's so beautiful. This is Bob.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so Bob said, Peter, I was so hungry, I had to go. And they said, we're going to give you pizza, but you have to sit down and listen to the gospel story first. And if you accept Jesus Christ, after that you get your pizza.
Oh my gosh.
He said, Peter, I was so hungry, I had to accept Jesus right on the spot. And I've been a believer all my life since then. There you go. Thank the Lord for pizza. Oh, and that reminds me of something else. But I'm going to save it for the story because it's connected to Joseph in the Aleph Tavs, and it has something to do with going to hell.
Oh.
All right.
Fun.
Some of you out there are thinking if you should go to hell, how to prepare. You should be prepared. You should be prepared for all things.
Well, that'll be very interesting. I'm not sure how I feel about listening,
All right.
but I will listen.
Kara, could we please focus? We're trying to focus here. All right, we're trying
I'm so
to.
Sorry.
Yes,
My bad.
we're trying to connect the reality that Jonah is a type and shadow of Jesus, and most people don't make that connection. But it's interesting because Jesus himself made that connection. And so what happened is Jesus had just fed 4,000 families. All these people are there, and all these people come. And what was happening is back then, the Pharisees and Sadducees, they had all the attention of the people. Whatever they said, the people would follow them wherever they went. Here comes Jesus. He shows up, and he starts feeding people. Free meal, free lunch, free food, free pizza, free pierogies. So what happened is all the people started going away from the Pharisees and Sadducees, and instead they're starting to gravitate towards Jesus. So that made the religious leaders extremely angry and upset. So after Jesus was done feeding all these families, they came to him and they started demanding something of him. And that's what you're going to read, Kara, to see how Jonah is connected.
All right. So we're reading out of Mark chapter 8, and we are reading 11 through 13. The Pharisees came and began to argue with him, asking him for a sign from heaven to test him. And he sighed deeply in his spirit and said, "Why does this generation ask for a sign?"
Wait a minute. What did he do? He did what?
He sighed deeply in his spirit.
What would that sound like?
Probably like my mom. It comes from her bones, like...
Right. I want to play that out. So I'm a Pharisee.
Okay.
Obviously, because I got a chain around my neck.
Oh, see, now that works.
And you're going to be Jesus. You're going to be like a
All
girl
right.
Jesus now. And I'm...
Okay.
Lord, show us a sign. Show us a sign.
Why does this generation always ask for a sign? It's like, why do they always leave their socks on the floor?
That's where your mom comes into this.
Yeah.
All right.
That's
I'm
what I
sorry.
heard.
Carry
It's
on.
So funny.
That
And he
was
sighed deeply in his
Oof.
spirit and said, "Why does this generation ask for a sign? Truly, I tell you, no sign will be given to this generation." And he left them. And getting into the boat again, he went across to the other side.
Oh, what the heck? That's impossible. Let's see.
Pharisees asked for a sign. Sign, why does he not tell you the truth? Given.
Is it maybe in a different one of the Gospels?
No sign given. Well, there you go. You want a sign? You ain't getting one. Goodbye.
None for you. It's funny how you'll
Maybe
be
it's in
looking for it.
Matthew.
You'll think you found exactly the one that you are trying to reference. And because many of these
All right.
stories are repeated in other books, you have to
The sign.
watch out for that.
Yes.
So where are we actually?
Yeah, Matthew 12,
Gotcha. Matthew 12.
verse 38.
Ooh. All right. So we're going to take a little field trip over to Matthew chapter 12.
Matas Yahoo.
Yes. Okay. Nice. I see what you were going for here. This makes more sense. Okay.
Right, there's the connection.
So this, in the New Revised Standard Version, this section of scripture actually starts out as titled The Sign of Jonah.
There you go.
So they're already like, there's a connection. All right. So Matthew chapter 12, verse 38. Then some of the scribes and Pharisees said to him, Teacher, we wish to see a sign from you. But he answered them, An evil and adulterous generation asks for a sign, but no sign will be given to it except the sign of the prophet Jonah.
There it is.
For just as Jonah was 3 days and 3 nights in the belly of the sea monster, so for 3 days and 3 nights the Son of Man will be in the heart of the earth.
There you go.
The people of Nineveh will rise up at the judgment with this generation and condemn it because they repented at the proclamation of Jonah
Oh my gosh.
and see something greater than Jonah is here.
Oh my gosh. Ay, ay, ay. You have no idea how this went up the Pharisees sideways because, like he just said to the Pharisees and Sadducees, those Gentiles in Nineveh who are wicked and evil and did all kinds of abominable, they repented.
Right.
And they'll rise up to judge you. You who think you are so holy and so upright and you know the scriptures like the back of your hand, that they will rise up to judge you. So there you have it. There is
The sign of Jonah.
Jesus himself saying to the people, I'm going to show you a sign. So basically, yeah, we can see a lot of connections with the story of Joseph as a type and shadow of the Messiah. But Jonah is a unique thing because you don't really see Jonah as a type and shadow of the Messiah at all.
There are definitely messianic parallels
Right.
of those prophetic things. And Jesus himself even makes that correlation.
Right.
And there's more in there. So I'm very excited for whatever is coming.
That's right. So now that we see that parallel and that connection, how amazing that we can go into the scriptures in the Old Testament, go to the Hebrew and pull out the Aleph Tavs that are hidden in the story of Jonah. And the Aleph Tavs being the Jesus code in the story of Jonah.
So we're doing Jonah chapter what?
1, verse 1.
1 verse 1. All right. So now we're in the book of Jonah. Now the word of the Lord came to Jonah, son of Amittai, saying, Go at once to Nineveh, that great city, and cry out against it, for their wickedness has come up before me. But Jonah set out to flee to Tarshish from the presence of the Lord. He went down to Joppa and found a ship going to Tarshish. So he paid his fare and went on board to go with them to Tarshish, away from the presence of the Lord. But the Lord hurled a great wind upon the sea, and such a mighty storm came upon the sea that the ship threatened to break up. Then the mariners were afraid, and each cried to his God. They threw the cargo that was in the ship into the sea to lighten it for them. Jonah, meanwhile, had gone down into the hold of the ship and had lain down and was fast asleep.
Now, you know there was another time
Yeah.
when there was a huge storm And there was somebody sleeping on a boat.
Yeah, and everybody was freaking out during that too, weren't they?
All right. Carry on.
It seems that there ended up being a very simple solution to it.
Yes.
And I think we'll find that there's a very simple solution to this one as well. Not a comfortable one, but a simple one. The captain came and said to him, "What are you doing sound asleep? Get up, call on your God. Perhaps the God will spare us a thought so that we do not perish." The sailors said to one another, "Come, let us cast lots so that we may know on whose account this calamity has come upon us." So they cast lots, and the lot fell on Jonah.
Surprise.
Ta-da!
Oh, just in case people don't understand what lots are all about. You see, when we don't know what to do, we cast lots because the answer is the Lord. The Lord answers for us. Mm-hmm. I think sometimes people don't know this because they think casting lots is like gambling
or something. Yeah.
You know, and what makes the problem with gambling is that we're basically trying to benefit
Right.
from inquiring of the Lord something that is not meant to be a benefit.
We're not even inquiring of the Lord when we do stuff like the lottery. It's literally we're asking an algorithm to choose us.
Right.
So very different thing.
That
But this, like, culturally though, this casting of lots is very significant.
Yes. You don't know the answer and you ask the Lord and basically say, like, I have no idea what the answer is. So we cast lots and then the Lord gives you the answer.
Yeah, we do that for our chore list as a family. We cast lots.
It's because nobody wants to do chores.
Nobody wants to scrub floors, but somebody's got to, so.
And then once they pick it, I say, "Thus saith the Lord."
No, you don't.
"You shall wipe the toilet."
So they cast lots, and the lot, surprise, surprise, fell on Jonah. Then they said to him, "Tell us why this calamity has come upon us. What is your occupation? Where do you come from?
Oops.
What is your country?
Oops.
And of what people are you?"
Oops.
"I am a Hebrew,"
Oops.
he replied. "I worship the Lord, the God of heaven, who made
Oops.
the sea and the dry land."
Oops.
Then the men were even more afraid and said to him, "What is this that you have done?" For the men knew that he was fleeing from the presence of the Lord because he had told them so. Then they said to him, "What shall we do to you that the sea may quiet down for us?" For the sea was growing more and more tempestuous. I love that word.
Ooh, that is a good word.
Tempestuous. He said to them, "Pick me up and throw me into the sea. Then the sea will quiet down for you. For I know it is because of me that this great storm has come upon you." Nevertheless, the men rowed hard to bring the ship back to land, but they could not, for the sea grew more and more stormy against them. They did not want to have a murder on their hands. They were like, "This man will die if we throw him out there." Then they cried out to the Lord, "Please, O Lord, we pray, do not let us perish on account of this man's life. Do not make us guilty of innocent blood, for you, O Lord, have done as it pleased you."
Now, hold on a second, Kara. You're reading over there. This Lord you're talking to now. What Lord is that?
That would be capital L, capital O, capital R, capital
This is
D.
fascinating because prior to them encountering Jonah in the bottom of the boat, they were all praying to their gods, little g.
But then they're like, "No, we must address this God."
Isn't that crazy?
Well, for them, it wasn't that big of a jump because there were
Right.
tons of gods.
Right.
And they just like prayed to whatever, like the hearth god and
Right.
the broom god or whatever.
Right.
So just turning and speaking to another deity wasn't as big of a jump for them.
Right.
They just didn't take him seriously as the one and only.
Right.
But in this case, I have a feeling they were like, "Oh my gosh, this is a little bit more intense than what we've experienced ever."
Right. Now they're talking to the one.
The one.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Good.
So they picked Jonah up and they threw him into the sea. And the sea ceased from its raging.
That's amazing.
Then the men feared the Lord even more. And they offered a sacrifice to the Lord. And they made vows.
That is amazing. Now, this is there's some very key little things over there. This says they picked him up. In some versions, it says they lifted him up.
Interesting.
They lifted him up. They lifted him up. Just remember that.
One more verse, it says, "But the Lord provided a large fish to swallow up Jonah.
Oh, great.
And Jonah was in the belly of the fish 3 days and 3
Right.
nights."
Exactly. 3 days and 3 nights. Let's go and take a look and see where the Aleph Tavs appear. There are not that many Aleph Tavs in the story of Jonah, which is really interesting. There's some places where it appears a little more than others. I'm going to switch here so that the people can see what you are actually looking at, Kara.
Yes. Awesome.
And
I think the first one is in verse 5, correct?
verse 5, yeah.
All right.
Okay. And some of these are not some of these really make you ponder, because sometimes the Aleph Tav is like so in your face, like, oh, okay, that's what it is. And then sometimes it's just like the Father's just saying, stop for a moment and think.
All right, so Jonah chapter 1 verse 5.
Yes.
And I believe this is a different translation.
This is the King James version. Thus.
So hopefully there won't be too much of a mouthful of THs. Then the mariners were afraid and cried, every man unto his God, and cast forth Jesus code the wares that were in the ship into the sea to lighten it of them.
Okay. Again, each of you even reading this, you'll get different little tidbits of revelation. There's a storm out there, and but if he goes into the storm, then there's peace for the boat, and the storm ceases. So it's really, really fascinating. That's the first time it appears. It then appears again.
Verse 9?
Yes.
All right. And he said unto them, I am a Hebrew, and I fear the Lord, the God of heaven, which hath made, Jesus code, the sea and the dry land.
Okay, so now this is really interesting, because in Genesis you see the Jesus code as the identity of the one who makes the heavens and the earth and the sea and the land. This sea you see as a big storm. I am the one who serves the coded one who speaks and makes the sea and makes the land and separates the sea from the dry ground. So it's really fascinating. It's, again, the Jesus code is connected to creation. All right? So that's how that appears there as well.
Right.
It appears then...
Right there on the sea. That's
exactly.
crazy.
Yeah. And then we
Ooh,
go...
I see little spots of little Jesus code right over here.
Yes, down we jump to 15.
All right. So they took up Jesus code Jonah.
There you go.
It's the first time that you see an Aleph Tav attached to his name.
Correct. Because as long as he's trying to hide away from his call, there is
Yeah.
no Jesus code on him.
So this is the moment where Jonah's finally surrendered.
Yes. Once he's been identified, it's like, hey guys, the Jesus code thing is on me.
Right.
So I'm the cause for all this trouble.
I'm the cargo you gotta throw over the side.
Exactly. Remember when they had to, the cargo in the beginning is connected to the Aleph Tav.
Right.
You have to throw the Aleph Tav cargo over the side.
Right.
And here it is. He is the cargo that has to go over the side. Yep.
So they took up the Aleph Tav Jonah and cast him forth into the sea, and the sea ceased from her raging. And then the next one is right there in verse 16.
Verse
so
16.
do you want me to just continue?
Yeah.
Then the men feared Jesus code, the Lord, exceedingly, and offered a sacrifice unto the Lord and made vows.
Yeah. Pretty simple, that one. Yeah. It's as if at that moment, for the first time, I really love this, because, in religion, people get so stuck thinking that, oh, we got to go out there and save souls. We got to save souls. Got to give them tracts. You got to talk and Here is an entire boat of people who have never heard of the God of Israel. And in a split second, in a moment, in a twinkling of an eye, they all believe in the God of Israel. And they're like, yep.
Yep, they see the power, they offer a sacrifice, and they make vows.
That's right. And what happens is that in our lives, like, people don't need to hear a story of Jesus. They just need to see the identity of Jesus. We have the identity. We are the Aleph Tav identity. When people see the identity of God, when they look at our face, when they see us, when they see our joy, when they see our smile, they get it. But until we're identified, then the people can't. Then the people have their own gods. People have their own things. So it's really important. It's not that people are rejecting God. It's that we refuse to be identified. Because that's what Jonah was doing. He was hiding. He didn't want to be identified.
It's so interesting.
Deep
So
stuff.
often throughout Scripture, especially a lot of Old Covenant writings, you see these phrases like, the Lord is with him.
Right.
You know, these people who, you know, are pagan or other, or they don't have any experience. They're like, oh my gosh, God is with this person. God moves through a person miraculously, and because of, you know, their willingness to obey,
Right.
and actually follow his word, what he tells them to do. And through their obedience, people are drawn in. People
That's right.
see and they identify. And I just find that fascinating.
It's beautiful. Many people view the story of Jonah as this little fairy tale. Like this silly little, like, really? Come on, really? Everything in the story is plausible up until the point that there's a big whale, and the whale comes and eats Jonah, and he's inside of the whale for 3 days. You know, and then, yeah, right. And okay, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Because people don't understand that our perception of what happened in this story is not accurate. I've actually seen little storybooks where you see this big whale, and there is like a little guy kneeling down in the whale saying his prayers, you know. And so we have this childish understanding, but when you read chapter 2, Kara, we're going to see that something else is going on in the story that a lot of people miss. So, Kara, you're going to read this very short chapter 2, and we're going to have some revelation as to what was really happening when he got swallowed up.
Then Jonah prayed to the Lord his God from the belly of the fish, saying, I called to the Lord out of my distress, and he answered me. Out of the belly of Sheol I cried, and you heard my voice.
Okay, stop right there, Kara. He's describing the belly of... First he says the belly of the fish, but then he says the belly of something else.
Sheol.
Sheol. What is Sheol?
Sheol is... I think it's so interesting that they left that in Hebrew there. Actually.
It is. That's right. In most translations, that would be translated differently than Sheol.
They would probably say hell or something
double,
like that.
Double hockey sticks.
Right.
H-E
double
hockey sticks.
Right.
Yes, hell. So he is getting swallowed up, and he begins to pray, and then immediately says, out of hell I prayed. So this is something very fascinating. Most people think that Jonah went into the belly of this creature and he was in there for 3 days praying to the Lord, and then he came out. That is not what happened. He got swallowed up and he was dead. And his soul, his spirit is crying out to the Lord in Sheol. Now remember, he is a type and shadow of Messiah. When Jesus put into the ground, he was not alive in the ground.
Yeah.
His body was dead, and in spirit he was preaching to the souls in prison, but his body was dead. So this is the part that a lot of people don't understand about the story of Jonah. Jonah's not alive in the belly of a fish. He is dead. He's literally saying, out of the belly of hell, I am praying to the Lord. Continue.
Interesting. Okay. You cast me into the deep, into the heart of the seas, and the floods surrounded me. All your waves and your billows passed over me. Then I said, I am driven away from your sight. How shall I look again upon your holy temple? The waters closed in over me. The deep surrounded me. Weeds were wrapped around my head. At the roots of the mountains, I went down to the land whose bars closed upon me forever. Yet you brought up my life from the pit, O Lord my God.
Do you see that? He's describing so he begins the description by saying physically what happened to me is like I'm getting wrapped up by weeds and I'm going down into the billows of the ocean, and all of a sudden something shifts. He goes into the bottom of the mountains, and where there's bars that keep you imprisoned and you can't get out of there. So he basically gets killed, and his soul is taken to the place of the people who have basically gone away from the ways of God. This is, I'm not doing your will, so I'm going to sit here and do absolutely nothing. And so he's separated from God. And he's describing hell, the place where souls would go and be in bars of iron and they cannot come out.
It's so interesting, too, that in this translation it says, weeds were wrapped around my head.
Yeah. Did you catch that? Y'all catch that? Weeds with maybe a few little thorns.
Very uncomfortable, prickly things, maybe.
Oh, Lord, this is
too
too much.
The waters closed in over me. The deep surrounded me. Weeds were wrapped around my head. At the roots of the mountains I went down to the land, whose bars closed upon me forever. Yet you brought up my life from the pit, O Lord my God.
Mm-hmm.
As my life was ebbing away, I remembered the Lord, and my prayer came to you in your holy temple. Those who worship vain idols forsake their true loyalty. But I, with the voice of thanksgiving, will sacrifice to you. What I have vowed I will pay. Deliverance belongs to the Lord. Then the Lord spoke to the fish, and it spewed Jonah out upon the dry land.
That is amazing. By the way, the part where it says the Lord spoke to the fish. So again, it's the understanding that the Creator says, peace be still, and what he speaks, he creates. He says, pick up your bed and walk, and the lame has to stand. He says, Lazarus, come forth. Lazarus comes forth, because basically what he does is when he speaks a thing, the word creates what he speaks, and he never allows the word to return back to him until it has, that's right, until it has fulfilled what he spoke. Right. So this is why suddenly it's like people are like, what do you mean God's speaking to the fish? No, all he does, God has to say to the fish, vomit, and the fish has to vomit. It's because God is the creator of all things. He has all of the galaxies and all of the atoms, and he's juggling them all in the palm of his hands at the same time. You can't drop a single one. You can't drop an atom, and you can't drop a galaxy. And he does all that while he's listening to our prayers. All right.
That's pretty deep.
This is no pun intended.
Yeah, no pun intended.
Let's go see if we can find some Aleph Tavs.
Okay.
In chapter 2.
When my soul fainted within me, I remembered Jesus code, the Lord, and my prayer came unto thee into thine holy temple.
Oh, by the way, I kind of have to have you pause right there. So the translators translate this: when my soul fainted within me, I remembered Aleph Tav. I remembered Aleph Tav, the Lord, and my prayer came on to thee. You know that in Hebrew, that doesn't read like that?
Really?
Yeah. In Hebrew, it literally reads, when my soul, because remember, when my soul fainted, I remembered, really? If your soul fainted, how are you going to remember anything? I don't ever remember remembering anything when I faint. In Hebrew, the grammar is changed. In Hebrew, it says, when my soul fainted within me, remembered I, Aleph Tav, the Lord. It's the Lord who's remembering him, not him remembering the Lord. That's amazing. Oh. What's so beautiful is that in the middle of our emptiness of despair and hopelessness, it's the Lord who remembers us.
Right, and it says actually at the end of his prayer, deliverance comes from the Lord.
Yes,
so that's actually like a confirming thought within the context.
So beautiful.
That's
so the
awesome.
Aleph Tav, Lord remembers us in our despair.
And I think the next one it shows up in verse 10. Right?
Okay, yeah.
All right.
Verse 10.
And the Lord spake unto the fish, and it vomited out Jesus coat Jonah upon the dry land.
So beautiful.
That's
Oh my
awesome.
goodness. So it's amazing. We see that Jesus is the first one who referred to himself as, look it, you want a sign, you're not going to get one except for the Jonah sign.
The sign of Jonah.
The sign of Jonah. So Jonah is a foreshadow of Jesus. And again, the foreshadow doesn't mean this person does everything that Jesus did. It's just that in the story, there's little hints that point to what's going to happen to the Messiah.
So do we find out what the sign of Jonah actually is?
We will next week.
I'm excited about that.
We'll go deeper into that next week. As for this week, what have we learned? We learned that in the 1700s, you were forced to do a Shabbat.
Forced. All day church.
All day church.
And there were Sabbath houses.
Sabbath houses.
Yes. And it was kind of awesome because Connie said, I just read about this today in the book Hidden History of Litchfield County. They brought beer and cider with the food when they would do their meals. So this was before
Beer and cider?
this was before they actually did all that abstinence from alcohol stuff. And then she said Sabbath houses were 2-family tiny houses with stoves. The churches did not have the heat so that they could rest and eat their lunches.
Oh my
So
goodness.
that's really cool that she knew a little bit more about that. That's so funny that she was reading that today.
Right, so they were a little bit more like Jewish people than we thought. If they're having beer on the Sabbath.
Yeah.
I like it.
Beer and cider.
Beer and cider. It's probably hard cider.
I would think so. It's probably pretty tasty too. But that's so cool.
I have people sometimes come up to me and say, well, I don't know what I'm supposed to do. I don't know if the Lord wants me to go to the right or to the left. I don't know if we should go up or down or sideways. Oh, Lord. I just want to, conk him in the head. Dummy, don't you know the story of Jonah?
Right.
The guy ain't got no problem getting you behind, throwing you into the ocean, having a big old fish swallow you up. And just be happy that the fish vomits you out, because the Lord could have a sense of humor and have you come out the other side.
Oh, that would have been a very different story.
Just to teach you a lesson.
Oh my gosh.
Don't get stuck on stupid, folks.
Can you imagine how popular that story would be as a children's story if that had actually been the way that it turned out?
Oh, before we go, I was supposed to tell you something about hell,
Oh, okay.
because Jonah was in hell. So something very amazing happened this week. We were sharing something about the tabernacle, whatever, and the veil being rent.
Yes.
And there was these 2 beautiful ladies. I'd never really seen them. I had seen one, but I hadn't seen the second one. And they were there. They're kind of like weeping through the whole thing, and I really didn't know what they were crying about. Maybe they got something stuck in their eye. You never know. And they came out at the end. They waited to come and say something to me. And one of them came up to me, and she kind of moved her little mask down a little bit so I could hear her. She was kind of whispering a little bit. And she said, well, I just want you to know that I'm going straight to hell. Of course, I said, don't worry about it. I'll come and get you.
Did you actually say that?
I did. I didn't know what she meant. So, and then she says, no, I'm serious. I'm going straight to hell. And I said, can you expound on it? I don't understand what that means. And she said, well, I am Irish Catholic.
Oh.
And any Irish Catholic who does not go to Mass on Sunday is going straight to hell. And this is not Mass on Sunday. But I'll tell you what, it's worth it. I'm coming back. So I'm just so honored that this beautiful lady has decided to go to hell because she just loves celebrating and worshiping with us here on the other day that people think is the Sabbath, but it's okay because it's a day of celebration too. It's just wonderful. People are willing to go to hell to listen to a good, wonderful message. And I did think...
Fortunately, we know that she'll be just fine.
Well, that's what you say because you are not...
Well, you're going to go get her.
I'm going to get her, number one.
So she'll be fine.
Plus, you're not an Irish Catholic.
Right.
So it's easy for you to say.
I know, it's true.
So, but I did notice something. We made a mess out of the sanctuary.
Oh, yeah.
So in a sense, she kind of did go to Mass.